Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, instead of looking at the Pennywise vignette, still waiting on a piece to arrive in the mail tomorrow that I think is going to make this piece extra special, at least to me. I was able to find Maiden Voyage, thanks to some folks on the channel, quite honestly, who said they saw it on eBay. I jumped on it and was able to get it. So for those of you who don't know, that's a Limax piece. I think it was 2003. Somewhere around that time frame. But anyway, it's a young boy, looks like in a yellow rain jacket with some boots on. He's bent over playing with his boat in the water. Got a big umbrella behind him. So I think I can manipulate that piece a little bit and use it in the sewer scene that I'm going to create with the Pennywise and the SS Georgie. So certainly am looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I've had some other folks ask questions on, hey, can you do a video that shows kind of start on how you design the house, how you design the layout, how you cut the foam, how you measure everything, the sidewalk, how do you cut that, and how do you measure that? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a closer look at that and show you kind of the secrets that I go through. I don't think they're secrets, just what I go through to get my scene out of my head and onto the components that I'm working with. So with that, let's take a look at 1031 Trick or Treat Drive and how I'm going to go about designing that to be another vignette. Okay, so you see the display piece here on a piece of foam. Now this is a 2 foot by 2 foot by 1 inch piece of XPS foam. Pick this up at Lowe's. And so the first thing that I do is visualize how I want the home to sit on the display piece. And for this house, I want it to sit right in the middle. It's got this fence that comes with it that has a cord that attaches to the house that will sit out in front of the house, similar to what you see here. And so in order to do that, I want a base piece. I want the house to sit up another inch. I want this to sit up another inch with a stair down to a sidewalk, and then a road, and then a curb, similar to what you saw on the Peanuts house. So how do I go about doing that? So the first thing that I do is I set the house right on the back edge of that foam. That's where I want it to sit because there's really not going to be anything behind it other than the cords going straight down to the plug-in. So really no need to put the house any far forward. I'm trying to save some space here. So that's the first thing I do. I put the fence about where I'm going to put it. It's probably easier to see this sideways. So I want the fence, I don't know, maybe an inch or so, 2 inches in between the stairs and where the fence starts. I'll probably do a small cut of foam and then paint it the same color as the walkway here, and then replicate that going up to the stairway is probably what I'll end up doing there. But then I want to have enough room, and you can see some lines that I've arbitrarily drawn on there. And the reason I've done that is I take the tape measure and I put it out here and I say, okay, so all in all, I want I want the piece, the top part of the base to sit right at, if I come across right here with a line, that'll give me enough room to put a stair, right, 1 step. And so that's right about 11.5 inches. So my first cut is going to be 11.5 inches, and that's going to be the top part where the house actually sits. The next thing that I want to do is measure off how long, or how wide rather, do I want the sidewalk. Well, on this piece, I figure going from about 11.5 to about 13, that's 1.5 inches. And I don't know if you can see the marks, probably a little bit better there. The 1.5 inches will be the sidewalk. So when I cut that on the Proxxon, it'll be 1.5 inches at about 1/4 inch thick, and then I'll run the sidewalk there. Then I want my road to go from 13 inches out to about 17 inches or so. So that's 4 inches of road. This road material that I plan on using is a little wider than that. If I started at 13, well, how about doing this? If I start at 13, it goes out beyond 17. And so that's a little too, I think the road would be a little too wide with 1.5 inch sidewalk. If I was going to use the whole piece, I'd make the sidewalk about 2 inches. I'd bring the house out a little further, but since it's just going to be a vignette, everything's shrunken down just a little bit. So I'm going to make some marks, and I'll show you how to do that on this matting, and then I'll cut the matting to the length of this. So that's how I do the measurements. Now, if you're looking at this carefully, you're thinking to yourself, all these numbers, well, you're probably gonna need more foam. And you're absolutely right. I would love to be able to make this entire piece out of one piece of foam. Unfortunately, this house and this front gate is a little too large to do that with. The Peanuts vignette that we did was perfect for that. It was only about 14.5 inches wide in its entirety. So I was able to do all of that. It was only 9 inches at the top. So that's how I was able to do all that. But here, I'm gonna have to take another piece of foam, and I've already got a mark here at 11.5 inches. So that 11.5 inches when cut on the Proxxon will actually be the part that sits up here for the house to sit on. I'll cut this at 17 and that'll be the front of the display. So with that, hopefully that makes sense. It'll probably look a little bit better as we get the Proxxon out and start cutting. So let's do that. Okay guys, I've got the Proxxon in now. I've got it turned on. I've got the heat set on number 4 for this XPS foam here. I've also taken a straight edge and marked out again 17 inches, drew a straight line right down the foam. This green foam is going to be the overall base. It's the largest part. This is going to hold really the street and the upper part. You'll see how it looks when it's cut. So with that, the easiest way to do this is move the gate rather, wherever you'd like to have it to line up with your line that you've drawn to the wire. The only downside of this Proxxon is this gate. You almost have to hold it down on this end. They make a tool that goes with that. Some third party, another YouTuber made one that helps, but I don't have it. So I'm just going to hold this down. And then you simply just run your foam straight through, and just keep it going. And we just continue to go. It's that quick and that easy. And now we've got 2 separate pieces of foam. I've got the base now that the house and everything is going to set on, and now I'm going to take the pink foam and cut the smaller piece, I think of 11.5 inches, to have the house sit on. So let me do that. Okay, so I'm back and I did the same thing. I was able to take a straight edge and draw a line at 11.5 inches. Here's also where you could run into a problem. Now you can cut this. It's 1 inch thick, so you can certainly cut it with a razor blade or a knife and go through that way. You can also use the Proxxon. The only bad part is if you put the gate all the way at the back where it locks down, it's still not far enough back to give me a cut where I need it. If you turn the foam around and you do the same thing, it doesn't make a difference. It's almost right in the middle of this, and that's too big for this to use. So the easiest way here is you simply take the gate off and then you freehand running this through. Now again, you got to be very, very careful and very still, but you just go slow, stay on your line. Okay, so now you've got your piece here that you're going to set on top. You can see the edge; it's pretty clean. A couple little ridges there where it stopped, and but we're gonna make this a brick wall, so you're never really going to see that. So no issues. That's the back. You could always use that side, turn this side around to the back, and no one would be any the wiser. Any way you want to do it. So that's how you cut using the Proxxon. Now let's start to put things together and hopefully you can see them take shape. Okay, it's time now to take one of the scrap pieces I had from the green section and cut the sidewalk. It's still an inch thick, so that's gonna have to be cut down after we cut the length. But I've measured here again, if you remember, I talked about 1.5 inches for the sidewalk. So I've measured that out. Essentially, the way you do this is you take the grate, or the gate, I keep calling it a grate. I guess it's a grate or a gate or whatever you want to call it, on this Proxxon, and you line it up with where your cut line is going to be. And then you lock it down, hold it, and start cutting. Straight through, nice and smooth, nice and easy. And boom. Okay, so now we have more scrap, and we absolutely want to hang on to that. We can use that for something else. But now we've got our sidewalk. This is the width right here of our sidewalk. And so now we want to cut this down to about 1/4 inch. You can certainly measure that. I'm just going to eyeball it. And the way I'm going to do that is to bring my gate up a little bit closer and say, okay, so 1/4 inch is probably something about like that. And so I think that'll work. Okay, so lock this down and hold, and here we go. I don't know how you would cut foam at this depth or this thickness any other way. I suppose you could use a knife and just be very careful. You could use the straight edge, the straight knife on your hot wire foam cutter that way, and do the same thing. But I mean, that's pretty consistent all the way throughout. It's pretty good, and so that'll be the sidewalk. Many people said, how do you cut it? Well, that's exactly how I cut it, just like that. So now I'm going to mark the sidewalk, and I'll show you how to do that, and we'll go from there. Okay, so to cut the sidewalk, it's 24 inches, 2 feet in length. And so the center of that is 12. And so essentially what I'm going to do is draw a line here at 12, and then every 2 inches, so at 10, at 8, 6, 4, 2, and then 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22. Okay, and so that is the lines on the sidewalk. Now I just need to take a small straight edge and draw those across. I'm just using the tip of my pen, and that's what I'm going to use to at least groove the lines first. If I need to take the engraver part of my hot wire foam kit and go over those later, I can, but now I'm just going to get the initial indentations using this pen. Okay, got a couple of different tools here. Just got a metal bendable, flexible ruler. You could certainly use that. Any straight edge will work to connect these lines or to draw through the lines. I like this carpenter square. It's pretty cheap at your local hardware store. You can get these for a few dollars, and it just kind of sits on the edge of the straight edge there. You don't really have to think about it, and now you just draw your line through there. All right, guys, that is the sidewalk in its entirety. You can connect these on the sides here as well to get a more refined look. Obviously, I recommend that you do that. I'll do that off camera as not to waste your valuable time, but you're gonna wanna do that all the way down the sidewalk just to give it that final look. And then I want you to see if you can see the texture or the lack of texture on this sidewalk. Well, that doesn't look too much like a sidewalk to me, so here's the magic behind that. Take a small piece of aluminum foil, roll it up into a ball. It doesn't have to be perfect, just a ball. And then take it and simply roll it on this foam. Now, I just want to do one part of this, and I don't know if you can see the difference in texture. You should be able to see that, but that gives it more of a concrete look, just with a simple foil ball. So I'm gonna go and do the rest of this sidewalk, and you'll see the difference between this and what it looks like when we're finished. And guys, there you can see the difference in the texturing along this sidewalk. It actually looks like poured concrete. Very, very convincing. So that's how you do the sidewalk. That's about the thickness of it. Just probably a little bit over 1/4 inch on this one. And that's it. Let's finish this, put it all together so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so this is everything together. You've got the top piece here that the house is gonna sit on. You've got the sidewalk. Okay, and then you've got the road that is cut to length, 24 inches, but not cut to width. So that'll be the next thing we do, is cut the road to width. I'll show you how to cut this matting. Pretty simple, but should be demonstrated nonetheless. And I forgot to make the curb. So once I'm done showing you how to cut the road, we'll plug the Proxon back in. I'll cut a piece of green foam for the road, and then we'll start gluing. Okay, I'm back here, and the way we're gonna cut this matting is we've taken the measurements already. They're 3.5 inches is the width of the road. So I've just got a ruler here. And this is a silver Sharpie. It's a lot easier to see on the back of this black matting. So I'm gonna measure at 3.5 and just draw a little mark here at 3.5. I'm gonna pull this all the way out to the edge. I'm gonna take another mark at 3.5 back here. Just make sure it's lined up to the very bottom. Okay, and that looks good. And then 3.5 back here is right about there. Okay, so 3.5 and 3.5. Now I've got this big T-square. I got this at Home Depot, and this is great for cutting and measuring your bigger pieces of foam. You can pick this up at the hardware store. I love it for the bigger displays that I make. It comes in incredibly handy, especially for cutting down the big pieces of foam and at least marking them to get them straight to cut them. It certainly helps. So really all I do here is line up the mark that I made on either side of this matting, the 3.5 inches. Okay, it's lined up there. It's also lined up there. And then simply draw a line so you can see it. This silver marker makes a world of difference on this matting. Okay, and we'll get this out of our way. And you can see the line drawn there. Now simply, this is the easiest part, right? I'm just gonna come over here where I can see a little bit better, put the cap on this, get this big T-square out of my way, or at least mostly out of the way, and then simply cut this matting. I go really slow to make sure that I try to stay right in the lines. I was never good at coloring in school and staying in the lines, so probably the same thing with scissors. So I take my time, make sure that I don't mess this up. For those of you who know, this mat, it's about 16 bucks when you purchase it online or at your local Department 56 retailer. So I enjoy it. It makes my life a whole lot easier. It's a whole lot quicker to do this than the old method. But if you don't take your time and you don't measure correctly, and then you cut not where you're supposed to cut, then you can start wasting some money, and I don't want to do this. And I'm not really looking at the camera, guys, so forgive me if we're kind of all over the place, but okay, so that's the road cut. It looks pretty good to me. It looks fairly straight. So let's place this back on and see how it looks. Okay, I've got everything back together again. You can see now how everything fits. You can see that the road doesn't go all the way to the end, and that's okay because we're gonna have a curb. I'm getting ready to cut that, and that's gonna sit along there and cover up anything else. And I do that on purpose. I wanna make sure that this road doesn't go all the way to the end because I want some foam on foam for a better glue situation versus just gluing it to the top of this mat. If this mat were to come up at some point, then the curb would come with it. So by putting some glue and then foam on foam, hopefully I'm securing this in a little bit better. And it's not under the sidewalk, it's just right up to the sidewalk. And so that is how that is looking now, okay? So let's get back on the Proxxon and cut our curb, and we'll go from there. Actually, before we jump on there and cut it, I'm only gonna make it probably, again, probably a quarter to half an inch maybe wide, quarter inch thick, and run it all the way down to match this. So those are the measurements I'll use, and then I'll show you how to cut it. Okay guys, I've got this scrap piece of foam. First thing I'm gonna do is cut this down to the width that I want, which is a half an inch. So I've got the Proxxon set to that, and it's on. So we'll essentially just start running this right down through there. Okay, so that is the width of the piece. Now we cut the depth of the piece, and I'm going to bring that just a little bit off on this one, not much, but I'm going to hold this. This is where it can get kind of tough, especially with a piece this size. So I mean, that is a pretty thin piece. You can go thinner than that also. But this is the piece that we're going to use for the curb. This is how it's going to look. And we'll set that on the display, and we'll go from there. Okay guys, we're back with everything put into place. Nothing's glued down, but you can sort of see this is how it's starting to come together. Everything is cut. Everything is where it needs to be. Needs some final touches. What I'm going to do now is we're going to get the other hot wire tools out. I'm going to show you how to cut stairs. We'll do that with an X-Acto blade. But if you remember, this house has got a wire that runs to a fence. It's also got, well, that's it. And this is going to remain unglued because if I were going to run street lights, all the wiring would be under here on this. This would sit on top for the street lights, and then the street lights would sit on the sidewalk. And I'll probably do that as part of this build as another part to show you how to cut the lights, solder the lights to the correct length of wire that you need, and then how to run that wire underneath this base. Okay, so let's grab those other tools and place everything, and then take some measurements and start cutting. Okay guys, I've got everything placed now. It's probably easier for me to turn this around so you can see the placement from the side. For this particular piece, I've got 2 holes that I've got to cut in order to hide this wire. A lot of people would leave this wire on top and try to cover it up with bushes or things like that. I'm going to bury it. I think it looks better that way. It's easy to do if you have the right tools. And so I'm going to mark an area where I want the first hole to go, and it's going to come right out of this house. And so I'm going to put the first hole right back in here. Okay, and I'm gonna put the second hole right in here. I'm gonna move this a little bit. I'm gonna move this house a little bit. Okay, and so I've got 2 holes that I'm gonna cut to hide this wire. So let's move this off and cut those holes. Okay guys, I'm back. I've got the hot wire foam factory straight knife here. And essentially, let's turn this down here so you can see a little bit better. I'm just gonna go straight through the foam. Just about like that. Same thing down here. Right through the foam. Route that out a little bit. And that is essentially it. I've got a little cleanup to do down here. You can see this one where it melted. We didn't quite get that out of there, and that's okay. Okay, that looks good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trench a line from here to here, enough to hide that cable so it sits flat when it sits down. That's going to require another tool. That's the trenching tool. Let me plug that in and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm back. I've got my trenching tool here. It's bent to roughly the shape that I believe that I'm going to need. Now there's going to be a lot of excess wire hiding in here. So I'm going to trench first from one hole to the next. Okay, pull that out, and that's what you're left with there. Okay, and then I know I've got a much bigger place to hide cord, so I'm just gonna widen this out a little bit over here and over here. Something like that. And you can go through and kind of finish those up. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's gonna be hidden, but that's what it looks like, and that's how I'm gonna hide that cord right down in there when it's all said and done. Okay, I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so it's always advisable to get somebody to help you do this, or to just be very, very careful, but you don't want to be flipping this out and around with your house on it and drop it or something like that. So you can kind of see where the hole is up by the house. Okay, so if I place the house where I want it to go, you can see right there in the corner where the hole goes. So essentially, you take your plug, you go straight down through the hole that you just created. Now, this is the first time that I'm doing this live, so hopefully it's a good fitting hole. And if it isn't, you can always take your pen or something like that and wallow it out just a little bit. This is a pretty decent sized little plug to fit down through there. I should have made it bigger, but there we go. So that is now down in through there. You can see sort of how it's hidden. And the grass will be covering this up, so you will not see this. Okay, now here comes the scary part. This is now waiting under here. So now we do the same thing here. I'm gonna hold this one up for a second. We'll take the fence, same concept. This is a little easier because it's not as heavy. Go right down through. I'm gonna wallow this one out a little bit as well. Okay, right down through the center. Okay, and now the crazy part is we're gonna try to connect everything. And the way you do that, it's difficult to do it with one hand, I'll tell you that much, and you're not even seeing this, so let me pull it across, set this down, and connect this up. Okay, so it's connected. Now if we put everything in back, you guys are probably going, man, you're gonna break everything you have. Just gotta be careful. Go slow. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to show you a bottom view of what this looks like when it's placed where I want it. Okay, that is the wiring up into that cavity. And essentially you're just gonna sit it there, hold it in place, bring it home, place it, and now it sits perfectly flat, just like you would want it to. The wires are hidden. This is the sidewalk, obviously will be glued on there. The road will be on there. I know you're not being able to see a whole lot of this, and I apologize, but that's a much better look than what we previously had. And that is how you hide the wires. This sits just as flat on all sides as it does, as it did in the beginning. So that's how you hide the wires under there. You would do the same thing with the street lights. You would put those on. I would put those on first. I would bring this whole piece up, sit that right on top of the street lights, and go from there. So hopefully that helps. Now we need to carve some bricks in this and measure the stairs. So how do we measure the stairs? The easiest way is once you've got your house lined up where you want it, and obviously I've cut holes, so that's where I want it. I'm gonna take a black magic marker and go right in front of the stairs where I'd like them. Okay, kind of match what we've got over here. Something around in this area here. Okay, now if I were to move all that, you could see. So what I'm gonna do is disassemble this, show you how to cut stairs. Okay guys, we're back to cut the stairs. I'm gonna try to do this so I can get it the best on camera as possible, but I'm using a box cutter. It's brand new, it's sharp. And the way I do it is these that I got on Amazon, and I left a link to that in a previous video, it locks. The blade locks into place, and there's goodness in that because this is how I measure. I measure with the blade sitting on top, and this is about how far I want this to come down, right? So it's locked in, and so when I start cutting, that's how I'm gonna cut. And then I essentially just cut on the line straight down, right to the back. Right to the back, and then straight across. And I go to the depth that the blade's automatically set at. Okay, and then cut through just a little bit. And then the last part is you gotta measure again. How far now do you want it to go back to cut? Well, that's not far enough back, so I'm gonna unlock the blade, push it out a little bit to that's about the depth that I want, right in there. So I'll lock that blade back at that depth, double check it, and then that's how I'll go in and cut this. And so the way I do this is I'm gonna go, let's see here. Just make sure that I got this down as far as I want, because I don't see the angle here. It didn't come all the way through the front. So right about here, it's about halfway, I'm gonna go straight across. And I'm gonna go this angle first, because this is the straight edge of the blade. And I'm gonna go all the way back. Now I felt some resistance there, which means it may have a funky look coming out this side. It's okay. Yep, that's the chunk that I felt. So they don't get perfect every time, and that's okay. They're stairs. When we carve these along with the bricks, we can make these look any way we want. I am going to take that little chunk out. I don't like it. And so we could fill that in. We could hot glue some stuff in there, but I'm not really even going to worry about that because I'll show you how it looks when it's finished. Okay, guys, so that is stair cutting 101. You can probably do this better than I can at this point. Bigger stairs, thicker foam, wider stairs. I certainly use the hot wire foam tools. It's so much easier that way for bigger stairs, but for small little 1-inch stairs like this, it's only one cut, and that's how I do it. So now let's look at doing brickwork, and we'll put this piece, at least start to put it together, and we'll call it good. Okay, guys, I've got the engraving tool from Hot Wire Foam Factory. I'm trying to show close-ups while at the same time allowing you to see what I'm doing, so I apologize for the camera work. You're not going to see everything, but we'll get it close. The goal is to make two lines right down, starting here. You'll see it start to come down in camera here in a moment. Okay, so not perfect, especially on this end. Looks a little wonky there at the top, but that's okay. And then we want to continue the cut pattern on top. Okay, so stairs look a little bit better. Not great, but better. Once the paint's on it, it'll look a whole lot better than that. So that's how you do the quick cut with the engraving tool. And now let's put it together. Okay, guys, we're back. We've got everything put together. The house is plugged in. It's lit up. And so you sort of see how everything is starting to come together. Obviously, it's going to need to be glued and painted, but look at the wires where they go down through. Hopefully you're able to see that. Pretty well hidden, and when you put the grass and the flocking down, you'll really never be able to see that. And so that's how you hide the wires on your display pieces. What I'm going to do next is obviously we'll glue everything down and paint it. I'm not going to show you how to do that on this particular piece. You saw the other tutorials. If you didn't, go back and watch some of the other tutorials where on the Peanuts house, I think I pick it up from gluing this stuff down, gluing the curve down, gluing the road down, and things like that. Same concept. I'll use white PVA glue, Elmer's glue to glue the road down. I'll use hot glue to glue the sidewalk and the curb. Once everything is painted is when I'll start gluing that stuff down. Not gonna glue this piece down. It's just gonna sit on top just like that to allow the cords to be hidden underneath. Now they're not hidden underneath because I raised it up, and so you can see them dangling there, but if it were to be glued down, there's no way to do that. So this piece will remain up, and that'll allow me to run street lights as well. The rest of the cords just simply fall off the back and plug in, and then you can hide those with some garland, fall garland or something like that too, if you need to hide those in the back. So that's how it looks when it's all cut and ready for paint and glue. Guys, I hope that was beneficial to you as far as design, concept, how to place the building where you want it, how to trace everything out, if you're going to run and bury wires underneath, how to do that, how to cut the sidewalk, and so on. So hopefully that's beneficial. Hopefully that helped. If you have questions, please leave those in the comments. If you like the tutorials, click on the like button, and certainly please subscribe. It means a lot. I appreciate every comment that comes in. I try to take time to read them all. There's occasions when I'm out of town. My job requires me to fly to different places with different clients. So there's times where I won't be able to make a video, but for the most part, we're off for the next few days, few weeks. So I got several videos that I need to accomplish. So with that, thanks, take care. We'll talk to you soon.